Allāhumma ṣalli ala Sayyidinā Muḥammad wa ala Sayyidinā Muḥammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And a very warm welcome to meditation and Murakabah. The story of the land of Palestine is not a simple political narrative. It is a deeply layered history and stretches back thousands of years, intertwined with prophets, revelations, migrations, and empires. To understand it properly, we must go step by step, beginning from the earliest times. The land historically known as Palestine is part of a broader sacred region called Bilad al-Sham. This land has been inhabited since ancient times by various peoples, most notably the Canaanites, who lived there thousands of years before the arrival of Banī Isrā'īl. The name Palestine itself is believed to derive from an ancient people who settled along the coastal areas. Now, the story of Banī Isrā'īl begins not in Palestine, but with the greatest prophet, Ibrahim ﷺ. He migrated from Mesopotamia towards the land of Canaan, which includes Palestine, by the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This was a blessed land, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran in Surah Al-Anbiya, chapter number 21 and verse number 71. And we delivered him and Lut to the land which we had blessed for all the people. From Ibrahim ﷺ came his son Ishaq, also known as Isaac, and then his grandson Yaqub, Jacob, also known as Israel. The term Banī Isrā'īl literally means the children or the descendants of Yaqub, Israel. However, Banī Isrā'īl does not initially settle permanently in Palestine. The entire episode began in Egypt when the king saw a disturbing dream: 7 fat cows being eaten by 7 lean cows, and 7 green ears of grain alongside 7 dry ones. No one could interpret it until Hazrat Yusuf ﷺ, who was at that time imprisoned, was called upon. In Surah Yusuf, chapter number 12, verse number 47 and 48, 7 years of abundant harvest were coming, followed by 7 years of famine that would consume everything sure. Then came the unique preparation. Hazrat Yusuf ﷺ was then placed in charge of Egypt's khazana, at the storehouses. During the 7 good years, crops were grown extensively, grain was stored carefully in its husks to preserve it longer. Consumption was controlled. This level of planning was extraordinary for that time essentially. Egypt became the only region prepared for a coming global crisis. So when the 7 years of drought began, it was not a local shortage. It spread across surrounding lands, including the region of Canaan, where Hazrat Yaqub ﷺ, Jacob, and his family were living. People were left with no choice but to travel a long distance in search of food. And at that time, Egypt became the center of survival, and this is where the journey of Banī Isrā'īl starts to Egypt. In Surah Yusuf, chapter number 12, verse number 58, and the brothers of Yusuf came and entered upon him. They did not recognize Yusuf ﷺ in the beginning, but he recognized them. They began a series of emotional and divinely orchestrated events, eventually leading to the reunion of the entire family. After these events, Hazrat Yaqub ﷺ and his entire household migrated to Egypt. In Surah Yusuf, chapter number 12, verse number 99, enter Egypt if Allah wills in safety. This famine was not just hunger, it was a means that was chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reunite Yusuf ﷺ with his family, to move Banī Isrā'īl from Palestine to Egypt, which looked like hardship but was actually divine rahmah, mercy and planning. Then came the mission of Hazrat Musa ﷺ, who led Banī Isrā'īl out of Egypt in the great event known as the Exodus. After their rescue, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded them to enter the Holy Land, that is Palestine. But they refused out of fear as well as lack of trust in Allah. Because of this disobedience, they were made to wander in the deserts for 40 good years. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter number 5, verse number 21 to 26, mentions this very clearly, including their refusal and the punishment that followed. Only after this period did a new generation enter the land under leaders of Musa ﷺ. Later on, prophets like Hazrat Dawud, David, and Hazrat Sulaiman ﷺ, that is Solomon, established kingdoms there. There was a period when Banī Isrā'īl had politically authority in parts of the land. However, and this is critical, their presence was not continuous nor unconditional. Their history in the land was marked by circles of obedience and disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When they followed divine guidance, they were established. When they transgressed, they lost their authority. Quran speaks about this very clearly in Surah Al-Isra, chapter number 17, verse number 4 to 7. Allah foretold that Banī Isrā'īl would cause corruption twice and would be punished each time by powerful nations. Now historically, this was fulfilled when the powerful empires invaded. The Babylonian Empire destroyed Jerusalem and exiled many of them. Later, the Romans also destroyed the Second Temple and dispersed them widely across the world. After these events, Banī Isrā'īl were no longer a dominant or sovereign presence in Palestine. Instead, the land continued under various rulers: the Persians, the Greeks, Romans, the Byzantines, and later by Muslims. A major turning point came during the time of Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, when the Muslims entered Jerusalem peacefully in 637 CE. From that point onward, the land remained predominantly under Muslim rules for many centuries, including under the Umayyads, Abbasides, Ayyubids like Salahuddin Ayyubi, and the Ottoman Empire. Throughout this long history, the land was inhabited by diverse populations: Muslims, Christians, and Jews, and confirmed by historical events. For the majority of recorded history, especially the last 1,400 years before the 20th century, the land was under predominantly Muslims. So the reality is, the land was not exclusively nor continuously theirs, nor did they maintain uninterrupted sovereignty over it. It has always been a land that was shared, contested, and ruled by many different people across history. Then let us now continue this journey from the ancient sacred past into the event that shaped the modern reality of Palestine today. For nearly 400 years before the 20th century, the land of Palestine was part of the vast Ottoman Empire. Under Ottoman rules, Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived together in relative coexistence. There was no concept of a separate Jewish state there at that time. Rather, it was a province with a larger Islamic governance. But the turning point came with the First World War, especially the collapse of the Ottoman Empire after the World War I. This was done without consulting the native Arab population who had lived there for centuries. This moment marks the beginning of a major transformation. After World War I ended, Britain took control of Palestine under what was called the British Mandate. During this period, Jewish immigration to Palestine increased significantly. Many were fleeing persecution in Europe, especially leading up to and after the atrocities of World War II. The tragedy of the Holocaust created immense global sympathy for the Jewish people and the Jewish population. However, the solution proposed by global powers involved settling them in Palestine, a land already inhabited by Muslims for centuries. Tensions began to rise sharply between the local Arab population and the incoming Jewish settlers. Protests, clashes, and violence became more frequent. Then came one of the most defining moments in modern history. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition plan to divide Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states. The Jewish leadership accepted it, but the Arab population and surrounding Arab nations rejected it, seeing it is unjust. In 1948, the state of Israel was declared. Immediately after, war broke out between Israel and neighboring Arab countries. During this period, a massive number of Palestinians, over 700,000, were displaced from their homes in what is known as the Nakba, meaning catastrophe. Villages were emptied, families were forced to flee, and many never returned. This is a deeply painful chapter that continues to shape the Palestine identity to this date. In the years that followed, further conflicts occurred, most notably in the 1967 war, after which Israel occupied additional territories that included East Jerusalem, the West Bank, as well as Gaza. Since then, the situation has remained unresolved, with ongoing tensions, disputes over land, identity, and sovereignty. Now, when connecting this modern history to the earlier history of Banī Isrā'īl, one must understand something very important. The modern political movement that led to the creation of Israel, known as Zionism, emerged in the 19th century Europe. It was largely a political and nationalist movement, not the continuation of the prophetic mission of Banī Isrā'īl. So while the ancient Banī Isrā'īl were a people chosen for a divine test, guided by prophets like Hazrat Musa ﷺ, Dawud ﷺ, and Sulaiman ﷺ, the modern development are rooted in colonial politics, global powers dynamics, and the modern nationalism. History shows us a repeating pattern. No nation holds a land forever purely by claim. Rather, authority shifts based on divine will and human actions. And that is why the story of Palestine is not just history, it is a living reminder of faith, patience, and justice. Historically, Palestine has been ruled by many different powers, but for the longest continuous stretch, spanning over 1,000 years, it remained under the Muslim governance. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.